Hello and welcome to another episode of Scions of the Southland. As always, my name is Akshay Ishwaran, and joining me from beautiful ACC Championshipville, Atlanta, Georgia, is none other than Mr. Jake Grant. How are you doing today, sir, you fellow ACC champion?
I'm feeling a little sunburnt today, to be completely honest.
Sunburnt? Why,
Yeah, I
why
went
go
to
outside?
baseball. Baseball was a fun time. Honestly, this could sound bad. This is a sports podcast. I'm a sports guy. I was just there for the Hawaiian shirt, and I was sitting in the stands doing MATLAB. So,
Did you get the Hawaiian shirt?
oh, it's gorgeous. They if you let me use a bad pun, knocked it out of the park with this one.
Ooh. I mean, to be fair, the the visiting team knocked a lot of things out of the park today in that game.
Are we going to go straight into the depression, or are we going to hit the fun stuff?
No. We're gonna hold that off. I have good stuff, then all the bad stuff, and then good stuff at the end. I have this all planned out. You know me.
All right. Let's start with good stuff then, because that seems more fun.
All right, let's put our usual 30 minutes on the clock and get started. Here we go. Let's start with track NCAA Indoor Championships. Jake, what do you have for me?
Let's pull up the old results. But at track, we had a bunch of second team showings in the All-American standings. No real team prize. We only had 4 athletes there, so that wasn't really or 3. No, we did have 4 because we had Cameron O'Neill doing the jumps as well. But 4 athletes: Nicole Fegans, Olivia Moore, Andrew Kent all got second team All-American. Fegans and Kent in distance running. Olivia Moore in the pole vault. So no trophies, but I think the more fun running stuff, at least for our expectations and our projections, is tomorrow with cross country's long-awaited, I guess, appearance in the national championship.
Indeed. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think that's the whole team is gone to,
Yes.
Right? Okay.
It's weird cross country. They just send a group, kind of like a team championship kind of thing, whereas track and field resembles something a lot more like swimming and diving.
Oh, why does the NCAA make everything so convoluted? It's like they make money off of the bureaucracy or something.
Oh, just tell that to the Michigan State UCLA first 4 matchup.
Oh, hey, the chair of the selection committee admitted to that being a TV matchup.
Yeah, well, that's the world we live in sports, where net doesn't matter. The numbers are all lies, and go Jackets.
Oh boy, we'll get there. We will get there. All right, let's talk about swimming next up. They were at, or I guess the divers were at zones this past weekend and the week before it.
Yes, they were. It was like a Sunday bleed to Tuesday kind of thing, and
weird scheduling. Weird scheduling.
Well, I have this on good info that they actually do stay at the same hotels in Greensboro, do hit the same restaurants. Like, they have this down to a science, which definitely makes sense, because if you're on this coaching staff, in terms of the last, how many weeks? I think it's like 4 weeks. 3 of the weeks we've had swimmers or divers or both in Greensboro at the GAC, and then for the women's championship and the men's championship, they'll just be back there next week and the week after that.
What's the point of having so many of? It doesn't even make sense at a certain point. Just send them all at the same time.
Well, I mean, you got to do the ACC's separate. The men's and women's are different, just so different facilities can host each. But ostensibly this year, just because of, I guess, sheer determination and willpower, the Greensboro Aquatics Center wound up with, gosh, I guess
everything.
5 weeks of ACC and NCAA action.
That is what you call some Tobacco Road politicking right there.
Yeah. The diving, that was actually done was pretty solid. Ruben Lechuga qualified in all three events, as did Cameron Hidalgo, Georgia Tech's record holder in the 1 meter, 3 meter, and platform, as well as freshman Anna Bradescu. I hope that's how you say that. Securing a spot in the platform. This is definitely the best showing that we've ever had from our divers at zones. We've never sent 3 divers in the same year to nationals, so that's pretty great. And qualifying for 3 events is no slouch.
And that adds to, I mean, you had a ton of, we talked last week about 2 or 3 Georgia Tech divers, or not divers, swimmers headed to the women's championships that are this week, and then you have a ton of men swimmers headed to NCAAs as well in the coming weeks. So
yeah,
I mean,
I was going to say that went final this week too, and we had 4 men's individuals. Obviously Ruben Lechuga in the 3 diving events, and then all 5 relays, which is exceptional. Relays are where you rack up points. Not saying that we're going to be top 8 in all 5, but 1 or 2 of them, Georgia Tech is a pretty darn good shot to make, maybe not a podium, but definitely an A final in a relay, and that is where you want to be in those relays.
Absolutely. Well, let's keep the gravy train rolling. Let's talk about tennis. First up, the women. They won another match over Duke, number 6 Duke, that is. But they did fall to number 1 UNC earlier today. What are your thoughts, the temperature on this program right now?
Honestly, a 1-1 weekend against 2 top 10 teams, we'll take it. The Duke matchup was, I'd say, even more convincing than the last time we played them, netting 5 points rather than 4 the previous time. Duke, I don't believe they've lost since the last time we've played, but I might be wrong there. I can't remember. That is not that's some gripping analysis right there. But we got
incredible preparation for this podcast.
Yeah. Definitely wasn't just yelling at my TV about a bracket. But
we'll get there.
Kenya Jones and Vicky Flores are now a top 5 doubles team. They rolled 7-6 on court 1. Roster and Cohen looked good too on court 2. And then going down the singles list, you had Kenya Jones, Vicky Flores, Carol Lee, and Mahak Jain all net wins. Carol Lee's and Mahak Jain's were particularly excellent because they both defeated ranked players on courts 5 and 6. Every single one of Duke's singles players is ranked, so definitely good to get wins there. And we didn't see Gia Cohen, who is our 3rd ranked player, in action in singles, but she was back for doubles both days, and I believe she played singles today as well. But the only point that we scored today was Kenya Jones on court 1. So tough, but I mean, UNC is the number 1 program for a reason.
Yeah, let's move over to the men's program because they also had a similarly weird week. They lost to UVA, who, if I remember correctly, is ranked pretty highly, I think.
Yes, top 10.
Great, top 10. I knew that somewhere in my brain. That was a 5-2, I believe, and then they swept VT on the back end of a Commonwealth Cup special. So where are we at with this team?
Honestly, they lost the one that they probably should have lost, and they won the one that honestly they were a little bit outmatched with.
Incredibly gripping analysis, just incredibly detailed.
A win on the weekend. I don't know, getting 2 points from top competition is pretty solid. We didn't win doubles, but Marcus McDaniel defeated a top 30 player in 3 sets on court 1. Pavel Shelcher won as well. These are, it'd be nice to see maybe an Anders Martin pull out his point on court 2. He was ranked higher than his opponent, but the others can't really complain. On 4, Keshav Chopra had a chance to get in a point, and maybe we're talking about a big upset there. But I mean, a lot of these third sets or deep tie breaks wound up being, well, at least on court 1, it was 1-0. It was a tie break just to play out the match because it was tied 2-2 kind of dealio when play stopped. So.
Yeah, I was looking at the scores earlier today as I was putting together the document and doing some updates on Twitter, and today's match went very well. I know you said that they won the match they should have won, but if you look across the board at some of these scores, they were pretty dominant today.
Yeah, 7-0 is never anything to turn your nose up at, and to win the doubles point, that's something that we've kind of been, I guess, struggling a little bit on the men's and women's side of the court. But to take it on courts 2 and 3, I think that says a lot about how our depth is doing, and that is a good sign. So,
okay, keeping it rolling. Volleyball started their spring season. I want to say we talked about one of their first series last weekend. Honestly, time all flows together at this point, so I don't really remember who they played, but they did play Pitt midweek, or I guess on Monday of this past week, and then they also played Boston College later in the week. There was supposed to be another match today versus UNC and a little bit of a pod thing going on, but that was postponed because of COVID issues at UNC. So they split the week. They gave Pitt a pretty good fight, but we know how Pitt is as a program. Pitt was able to get that sweep, but they responded in the next match by sweeping a middling Boston College team. So what can we take away here?
Yeah, looking at our draw before the season, we got a relatively tough one, anchored by having to go play Pitt on the road on a Monday, while we are still, getting back into the grind of the season, and playing back-to-back days is always tough. So not going to explain that one away. It would have been nice to beat them for the first time since they joined the conference. Obviously, conference titan. You want to get those wins. There was a very aggressive use of challenge in the Monday match against Pitt. Coach was making sure that calls went her way, and I respect her for that. No complaints with any of the times they were used, but it was just definitely interesting to see being on number 3 very early in the second set, in the possibility that a set might have gone to 4 or 5 sets and needing some challenges late. But yeah, in terms of play, Maddie McKissick, setter of the year, did not dress either game last weekend. I believe she didn't dress Friday. Not really sure what's up there. Obviously,
still got a boot on the leg. Don't remember which leg, but we're still watching that. Her replacement was, pretty decent for replacing a setter of the year in both games, despite the loss.
Yeah, I'd say Isabella D'Amico has stepped up nicely. Again, tough loss, tough not to have her, but can't really complain. Georgia Tech has traditionally played a pretty short bench since the Bergman, Brambilla, Dowd, McKissick, Kaiser, Tippett. The core has solidified, so there hasn't been a lot of subs, and it's definitely been interesting having to see more from Patterson as well as D'Amico. They're both freshmen. Aaron Moss in there as well. But honestly, would have been nice to see UNC. We match up pretty well against them. Not sure when that game will get played, but 2-1's all right. This is, I didn't see a basketball championship coming this year, but I would have circled volleyball as our most likely title in any sport now that golf is kind of on a lull after their couple of years of domination. But, we're still in the mix for that too, so not bad.
Yeah, I think when I looked at the standings a couple of days ago, right after the BC win, we should still be tied for first, pending other results that have happened in the interim. So, it's, they're still in the mix, like you said. So nothing too shabby.
Yeah. Again, it would be nice to pick up those wins against Pitt. And one of the big things that hurt us in 2019 was a fat home loss to Boston College. And we did not do that this year. So that is pretty great.
Indeed. Let's move on to, I guess, the start of our downslope towards the negative stuff. Softball. Softball split their series this weekend versus Pitt, but boy howdy, were they looking like they were going to win it for a moment there. And I'm saying this depressedly because I watched all of a complete meltdown on Saturday, and it was terrible. Please tell me more about, I guess, your thoughts here before I ramble on further.
Given that you invested the direct watching of all of this, I will try to stay out of your way a little bit. But the bats, positive, more active. Other than that, I don't have a lot of nice things to say. Pitt is a team that you need to take the series from to beat 4 times in 4 games. This is not the benchmark for this or any program in the conference.
Yeah, I think our consistent theme throughout we're almost at the midpoint of the season, I think. But the consistent theme that we've been hammering away at is this program has not performed up to the benchmark that they have set for themselves. Sort of the level of success that they pride themselves on, and the level of effectiveness that they pride themselves on. And this kind of was, I feel like it was an example of that. I mean, when we talk about Pitt is, I mean, like, I hesitate to say that they're not a great softball team because obviously you see the result that came in today or this weekend. But the fact remains that Pitt is still like in that lower tier of the muck that is the ACC in terms of softball. And like you said, these are games that you have to win. And you cannot just give up 8 runs in the top of the 7th when you're leading 8-1 and then lose. Like, we'll talk about this again with the other bat and ball sport because that happened there too this weekend. But it's not great. I know some of these things even out over time, and they've been getting unlucky with some defensive errors, some batted balls in play, et cetera, et cetera. But really, it's just the same kind of stuff that we've been hammering about the entire season so far.
They imploded twice against NC State. They couldn't keep it together a couple games against FSU, Clemson. And yes, if you win those games, you're looking at least closer to 500. But man, there just has not been a solid lockdown performance like we saw that first weekend since, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess I know, like, I can watch these games and tell you what it is. I think the pitching needs a lot of work. They've been doing this sort of pitching by committee thing every game where they toss in Nelliman, Ray, Bruce, McPherson, and Pinholster in some sort of combination, it's not really a rotation. It's just really some sort of ordering. But the starter rarely lasts, more than an inning, or 2. I think that number has slowly been coming up, which is good to see, but they usually have a rash of leadoff walks and bloop singles. And I don't know. It's just that it is kind of not fun to watch softball. Like, I really like watching this program in person, but I will say that this season has not been fun so far to watch on TV.
Yeah, I would agree with the sentiment. I don't want to write him off, but there's not a lot of, like, they need to start winning in bulk if they want to have tournament or season saving expectations.
And I think, to their credit, the hits came back this weekend. They were hitting at a pretty good clip. Lots of homers, lots of extra base hits. It's just the defense has got to be there.
Yeah, and my question is, are they hitting because it's Pitt, or are they hitting because they're hitting?
Remains to be seen. Yep. I think there is some credit to be given to to like there's some merit to saying that they're hitting because they're hitting, because I think versus NC State we also saw that they were getting on base. They were just getting super unlucky with flyouts.
There's something that I think we need to double back on before we kind of close the book on a dour note, and that is the unanimous consensus of softball Twitter has been that the officiating has been questionable at the
Oh
very,
yeah.
very, very nicest. And
Oh
there
yeah.
was a couple moments in the implosion against Pitt where clear ball straight down the middle was not called a strike. A bang bang play at first, which wasn't quite so bang bang, not called an out. Like that is it's not quite the same as, or it doesn't feel quite the same as, wow, the refs are actively against us, like it sometimes feels like in basketball, Duke game. But if you have officiating crews who are not up to the usual snuff, that makes, even when you do everything right, it makes it a lot harder to win.
Yeah. At least it's happening to everyone. That's all I got there.
Yeah. That's my one caveat for everything we just said.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the more frustrating bat and ball sport, who also played Pitt this weekend. Baseball lost their first home series in a couple years. In not a fun way.
In many years, too.
Yeah. I do have to give credit to Pitt in this one, not just because they won, and I have to say that legally, but they did. This is a good Pitt team, and I think we did underestimate them a little bit based on what we knew about them in previous years. I mean, this same Pitt team won a series versus Florida State earlier this year, and Florida State was a CWS team 2 years ago when we actually played a full season. So obviously you can add some caveats, whatever caveats you want to that, but credit where credit's due. But now we also have to take credit where it's due, right? Or give discredit, if you will. And where do you want to start? I have two places that I want to know, but let's see if you and I overlap here.
Where we're giving discredit?
Sure.
Well, our pitching can't hit the broadside of a barn, and our fielding, like Luke Waddell, they say he's a Golden Spikes preseason finalist. He looks like he's wearing the spikes on his hand at shortstop. So,
okay, I was giving you the opportunity to hedge and be a little nicer than I was going to be.
Dude, usually I'm the nice guy. It's my turn,
Okay, fine. I'll be good cop this time. To put it mildly, they have a similar problem to softball where the defense is just not there. It's not up to the quality that we expect, and I think the standard that we expect from the baseball program is actually is pretty high. And the pitching has been pretty disappointing, especially with the arrival of Burrell a couple of years ago, who was who we sort of heralded as a pitching genius, and I don't think we've sort of seen the fruit of that. I think that maybe some of that is still baking, still ripening, if you want to keep the fruit metaphor going. On the flip side, talking about the defense, like you mentioned, there are a lot of uncharacteristic defensive mistakes, a lot of just misplayed balls in the outfield, a lot of balls just running under gloves in the infield. And I think another point that we talked about in the writers' room is this team does not seem to be shifting against opponents. And that's one of the reasons why that Pitt meltdown happened, I think, is because you had the infield in its normal configuration, and they just were not moving around to match up with hitters and avoid getting bloop singled and bloop doubled and grounder over into shallow left all over the place. And that's really why that game got as bad as it got, in my opinion.
Yeah. It was a lot of dink and dunk, but at the same time, there was a lot of a lot of power that Pitt showed, and when they're hitting you left, right, and center, there's not a lot that you can, I guess, do other than pitch better. Like that's really your only option, right?
Yeah. And I mean, we had a rash of walks and hit batters and just like an inability to throw first pitch strikes. And it all came to roost in one series.
Yep, I would agree. That's a fair assessment, in my opinion.
You can't give up 9 runs in the top of the ninth. Like, you can't.
That's just not how you can't win games and do stuff like that. This is a paraphrase I like to make, but the thing that separates the wheat from the chaff in college baseball is walks and errors. And good teams don't walk a lot of guys, and they don't make a lot of avoidable mistakes.
Tech has not been that clean in this series, and it's been a pattern. I think we've talked about in the last couple of series where it just hasn't come back to bite them. They've been able to hit their way out of it because the other teams have not been able to hit as well. Yep. And Pitt was able to take advantage and really run up the score in a couple of these games.
Yep, I would agree.
Okay, we need to move on and talk about happier stuff before I start losing brain cells. Quick note on women's basketball: Selection Monday is tomorrow. We may do a tournament or like a seeding show, quick one tomorrow. We haven't really ironed that out yet. But if you hear it, you hear it. Their current projection is a 5 seed in South Carolina's region. They would start off in the first round versus Central Michigan. And then their second round matchup, if they advance, would be the winner of Indiana and Wright State. Give me your sort of very quick thought on how that shakes out.
Let's see. I think, I don't want to say that I expect us to be lower than Charlie Cream's latest projections, because I believe that this team, when it plays together, plays well. Sweet 16 team for sure. But the team that we've seen down the stretch is not quite that. I don't really believe we've earned a top 5 seed. 6, 7, yeah, but a 5 would somewhat shock me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the way that bracketology works, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute here with men's basketball. But I don't know. I think I'm just going to repeat what you said with regards to the way that they played recently. They just kind of swooned those last couple games, those last couple weeks, and obviously they gave NC State a good run for their money in that ACC semifinal, but where is their current form, right? It's definitely somewhere in the middle of taking NC State to the absolute last 30 seconds versus losing to Boston College. But where is it? And I think that's sort of what we need to, like, that first game. The first 10 minutes of that first game are really going to sort of iron out where that is and what they'll do. Obviously, it's must win, so obviously it kind of tells you what they'll do and how well they'll do in the tournament, but still.
Yeah. Again, survive in advance. All that matters is they're going to be there.
True. And speaking of just being there, for the first time since 2010, the men's basketball program is now in the NCAA tournament. They have been in the ACC tournament, and they also won the ACC tournament. By the way, no asterisks will be tolerated. Yeah, I don't know what to do about these emotions.
I was going to say, this should be the happiest podcast we've ever done, right?
It should. It really should. And yet we're just sitting here upset about the seeding that they got.
Yeah. I was I was pretty upset about that too. So
Okay, we should probably actually talk about what seed they got before we criticize it. So, like we said, ACC champions, they get an auto bid. They matched up as the number 8 seed in Illinois' region, and they will play number 9 Loyola Chicago, who you may remember from the Sister Jean memes and their 2018 Final Four run as an 11 seed. That's the important part. Yeah. Tell me why this is not a good matchup.
The Loyola matchup? Well,
yes.
This is almost certainly a much better team than they had 3 years ago. So, wow, that was 3 years ago already. Whew. No, this Loyola team is and was, for good reasons, a top 25 team all year.
Yep.
They can rebound. They have size. It's going to be probably a plotting game where we're going to have to match up with them. Is like how we match up with a Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to have to cause chaos. We're going to have to throw them off their rhythm and play a brand of basketball that they have not seen yet this year. Because Georgia Tech's brand of basketball is rather unsettling, even to the teams that we've already played twice.
Mm-hmm. Would you say it's a defense or a scheme that they have to prepare an extra week for, and that the conference gives them extra time to prepare for?
The Missouri Valley's been done for an extra week, but they're only finding out who they're playing right now. So, it's a tough draw.
I really just wanted to shoehorn. You know what joke I was trying to shoehorn.
I know what you were trying to do. So does everybody listening to this podcast. If you don't, he's making triple option jokes. Paul,
way to spell it out.
Anyways, for the life of me, I don't think they could have made a personally more frustrating bracket draw for Jake, Tyler, Grant to have to watch.
But it's funny. It's funny to everyone else.
I mean, Loyola, for those of you who don't know, who do not know me as a person, Loyola is a school which my family has deep roots to. The first person to graduate from my college from a college in my family went to Loyola. That would be my grandfather, at least as far as I know. He's the first. But and then Illinois, obviously, long roots there as a Illinois boy. Grew up, first came to college basketball fan maturity in 2005 when they made their run and ultimately lost to UNC. So yes, it's tough. Loyola, great team. Missouri Valley was very worthy of having 2 bids this year. I think that for all of Coach Josh Pastner's well wishes in saying that 11 ACC teams deserve to be in the tournament, I believe he believes that deep down. But I think and even listening to CBS, this is where I get on my little mid-major soapbox. The power of the A10, the power of the Missouri Valley as conferences, and the importance of mid-major basketball being good. I mean, I don't think you can understate that. I think the Missouri Valley is a quality league. Loyola will match up well. They've been tested in a not bad league, and then Illinois after them. I mean, I assume they'll beat the 16 seed because I personally believe they're the best team in the country right now. So it's tough. It's a very tough draw for any team, but for this to be our team, especially seeing Clemson on the 7 line and Florida State far above us, a team that
on the 4.
I wasn't expecting a 4 seed, but 7, yeah, I think this team deserved better than what they got.
Yeah, just to sort of color more inside the lines here. Loyola Chicago is a top 10 team per Ken Pomeroy's rankings, his advanced stats. They are the 30th overall seed per the selection committee, while Tech is the 34th overall seed. Just to round out some of the other rankings, they were ranked 10th in the NCAA net rankings, and they were like Jake mentioned, they were 18th in the AP poll. So, how does the 9th overall team, according to KenPom, get a 9 seed?
Well, I think the more important thing to look at is the net, because that is what the NCAA tore apart RPI for and replaced it with just a few years ago, only to basically prove through what they did today that it means absolutely nothing by putting Michigan State and I love Wichita State. I have a soft spot for them, but them and Michigan State being in the tournament over St. Louis, over, Lord help me for saying this, Louisville, Colorado State, it is unacceptable, and it shows just how much of this is convoluted nonsense, because you're telling me, based on what they show us, that the numbers do not matter. Loyola deserved a 3 seed. Loyola deserved a 4 seed, and that would have even still probably been a snub, quite frankly.
It does come with a caveat that I'm not sure that Loyola played a non-conference game. I did take a look at their schedule, and I didn't see one. And they also played a lot of these teams in the Missouri Valley a couple of times. I assume there was some sort of pod thing going on there. Yeah. But again, caveats, like I can offer caveats, but once you go to the advanced stats and the opponent adjusted stats, you can kind of see that like the didn't play nobody logic of, typical college sports rankings it falls apart.
Yeah. I mean, let's go back through their losses. So played Drake.
They only have 2 of them, I think. And they have 4 of them.
They lost to Drake in the regular season. Drake is a tournament team and should be a tournament team. Played Bradley Cliffs twice. Northern Iowa, good program on a down year. Yeah, really down year. Beat North Texas out of conference. Beat 2 D2 teams out of conference. Lost to Richmond in a tight one. Richmond was a bubbly team for a while there, and lost to Wisconsin in their only major matchup that they got in, which is a shame. I feel like COVID has decimated or accelerated the process of mid-major versus high-major crossover, and even mid-major versus low-major crossover play, even more than we were already seeing in the last round of realignment. But this is not the podcast where we can lament about Loyola not getting good opportunities to play ACC teams because we need to kick their teeth in 5 days or 6 days.
Yeah, so that game will be on Friday. There is no time or TV schedule or any sort of stuff released just yet. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about this. Like you said, I think this was supposed to be a really happy podcast, and had we recorded this like 3 hours ago, it might have been like an absolutely ecstatic one. Oh yeah, and then we watched the selection show.
I mean, it sounds really bizarre to say that somebody in Indianapolis or somewhere has a bias against Georgia Tech, especially when you see something like, hey, our women's tennis team got the benefit of the doubt 2 years ago in making that tournament. Our golf team gets the benefit of the doubt, I feel, sometimes in our seeding. Our baseball team probably was not the 3rd best team in the country the year we were nationally the 3rd.
Yeah, that one was
that was a mind-boggling shock in all the best of ways. But
question mark, happy question mark, but question mark nonetheless.
Oh yeah, for sure. But when it comes to men's basketball and football, but I mean we're not diving into the bowl dilemma right now. But there's only so many times that you could say, hey, why is this the way it is? And I feel like Georgia Tech, more often than most, is left asking those questions. And the same could be said about the sanctions against this program, which, oh boy, Josh Pastner choosing to take the postseason ban instead of this year, last year, in a year that they didn't even finish the ACC tournament, let alone start the NC2A tournament.
Amazing.
I mean, that's the most brilliant move I've seen all day, all year, all decade.
Galaxy brain foresight that honestly, one of the best administrative decisions that I have seen from this program in quite a while. That has paid off.
I was gonna say we're gonna go full hog on the idea that's been percolating in my head. This right now is a Josh Pastner appreciation podcast because that man is very clearly loved, cherished by his players. You can question his scheme sometimes, but his defense is fantastic. His development and his staff, amazing. And that dude, I mean, listen to him talk. He's so earnest and genuine. Seems like the nicest guy that you could possibly have. I don't see how anybody could I guess rain on his parade right now. He deserves every bit of this, and I think far more credit than even this podcast or this site has given him over the last 5 years.
I mean, I think we've ragged on him. I mean, we ragged on him at the beginning of the season, right? Because they opened the season with losses to State and Mercer, and validly ragged on him. I still think it was valid at the time.
Yeah, but
I think, again, credit where credit is due, right?
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I especially encourage people to go listen to Josh Pastner's voicemail. That is an incredible 45-second long adventure in humility and, I don't know, graciousness.
He still feels like the new kid on the block.
He's such a goober. He's such a goober. And fine. Basketball savant, he is not necessarily, but he did win an ACC title. Caveat, asterisk is whatever.
We'll put caveats on my happiness, sir.
No, I'm saying we can throw those out. We can ignore those. I don't necessarily like. I bought the T-shirt. I'm gonna freaking wear it. Like, I don't care about your asterisks. It's not gonna be on my T-shirt. So, whatever. He did it. Is what I'm saying. Is what I'm taking a lot of words to say. He did what he set out to do at the beginning of the season. Win an ACC title. Now comes the next step: winning games in the NCAA tournament. And right now, he's an underdog. Right? He's an underdog yet again, with his team coming off an 8-game win streak in which they also won a conference tournament. No one in the national media is really talking about Tech's chances in this game versus Loyola Chicago. And they're kind of assuming that Illinois is going to roll through their game versus Drexel, and then that second round matchup with them and Loyola Chicago is going to be a barn burner. But what if it's Georgia Tech in that second round matchup? It doesn't matter what the result is then.
The amount that I wish that I did not have to be rooting against the Illinois Loyola matchup in the second round. Like that would be much must watch TV, but I'd rather scream and cry and whatever than that happen now. And I think that's a shame to take away a fascinating matchup like that, at least from a very personal angle on this. I don't know, man. I literally don't think that this could have. I can't get over how it affects me personally, and I'm sorry about that. Like, I would be more unbiased about that.
All right, let's take the heat off you. Let's let you evaluate your personal situation and consider it. You have until Friday, so
I mean, we already know which way I have to root.
I sure hope you do.
I'm just in mourning for what could have been, you know?
I mean, I sure hope you know which team to root for. Otherwise, I'm going to have to find a new co-host.
Yeah, I'm going to have to find a new basketball jersey, too, if that's the case. But
Woof. We've been ranting about seeding for at least 20 minutes at this point. Any last minute things? Any last minute notes?
6 more wins. 6 more wins.
Hey, they said they weren't coming home till August. Not August. Wow, really botched this one. They said they weren't coming home until April.
Yeah,
So.
hearing West Durham mention that, oh yeah, you guys are on spring break this week. Anyways, to Moses Wright, I about cried.
Oh boy, we don't have to get into that. Thank you everyone for listening. We will talk to you again very, very soon.